So I spoke earlier about getting into business for yourself, fulfilling that lifelong dream that you've always had about being your own boss, right? And one of the aspects of that I like to teach in my online courses or when I'm mentoring people one-on-one is how to mitigate the risk. As we know, most small businesses fail in the first few years, and they don't fail because they're bad ideas. They fail mostly because people don't plan correctly. They don't really look at it from a different perspective. They have kind of like rose-colored glasses when they're looking at their great idea, right? It's their baby, it's everything they want to do. And a lot of times they miss some very important, crucial components about being in business. And so being in business is, rather complicated, and there's a lot of things that you have to learn from it. So what I wanted to do is talk a little bit today about how to mitigate or to reduce the risk of failure before you even get into your dream job, right, or your business. So I want to give you a couple examples. One was how I started out. So my story basically was that I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and when the opportunity came along for me to do that, to jump from my job into my dream job, I realized that I had a couple things going for me. All right, so I was still in school, in college, and while I was in school, I had the fortunate opportunity to be the retail manager at the Polynesian Culture Center in the cultural marketplace. And it was just a job that kind of like fell into my lap, so I thought. And I took to it like a duck to water. I realized that was my aha moment. That's when I realized this is what I really enjoy doing. I really enjoyed sourcing product, conceptualizing ideas, taking them to market, shopping for them, pricing them, etc. Everything to do with buy and sell, I loved it. And up until that time, I wasn't really quite sure what my, process to success was going to be until I landed that job. If I wanted to do, this full time, and I wanted to do this to benefit me, you see, when you're working for someone else, you're helping them fulfill their dream, right? But when I wanted to fulfill my own dream, I decided I was going to have to go out on my own and do it myself. So my wife and I, we decided to look for a retail space in Waikiki, downtown Honolulu, and kind of transfer what we had learned at the Culture Center into a business for ourselves. Now, that type of planning kind of put me in a power position for a couple reasons. One was I had experience. I'd already experienced that business as a manager, so I knew how to do all the components of being in business. I knew how to source the product. I knew how to price the product. I knew how to test the product. I knew that there was already a market for the product. I knew how to manage people. I knew how to do the accounting. I had done a little bit of everything as manager in that position. So this was not a new concept for me. It wasn't something I was just going to open up and jump into, hoping that it would succeed because I thought it would. I knew that this type of product, this cultural merchandise, things related to Hawaiiana, in my instance, was workable. It worked. I mean, if it worked at the Culture Center, it would work downtown in Waikiki as well. We basically cater to the same tourist or local people. And so because of that, I knew that all I had to do was find a location that had foot traffic, had people that would come by, because in retail it's all about location, right? Location. And so we started our search and we found a location down in Honolulu that was a little store that had the similar merchandise that we had, and they wanted to get out of the business. Now, they didn't want to get out of the business, they wanted to get out of that location because that was their second location. Their first location was doing super well, and so they decided to open up a second location, and this one was taxing the first location. This is often called the poison pill of retail, is when you do really well in your original initial location, you think, oh, this is a fantastic idea, I need to duplicate this everywhere, and the owners go and open up another location, and then that location isn't doing as well as your original location. And what are the reasons for that? Number one, the original location, the owner babysits it. The owner sits there and runs that store. When you open multiple locations, now you have to depend on other people. And that becomes the challenge for any person who's in retail or in business themselves. Ask any employer, what is your number one challenge? They will always tell you the same thing over and over again. Employees, getting good help, people who care for your business and will baby it and take care of it the way you would. And of course, this is what happened in this location for these people is their sales weren't where they wanted to be. It was more of a drain, it was more of a headache, and so they were willing to get out of that location. Now, they were making sales at that location, but they weren't doing as well as they wanted to, so they were interested in selling the lease. And so I took a look at that, and we looked at it and said, okay, so they're making money, the concept works, it's just a headache for them and they want to get out. So we decided that we would purchase their lease and we would open up our store. There was only a 400 square foot store, a relatively small space, right? And so we felt like, okay, we could do that. That wouldn't be, the rent wouldn't be too high, it wouldn't be too much of a risk because we wouldn't go in with a new concept, we'd be going with a concept that had already proven itself to be somewhat okay, right? At least it was manageable. And us being the owners, we'd go in there and give it our all, and we'd babysit it, and we'd nurture it and grow it. And so we figured, yeah, okay, this is the right thing to do. So we did that, and we purchased the lease. Now here's the mitigating the risk part. We didn't quit our job and just open that store. What we did was, I kept my full-time job at the Culture Center, and my wife ran that store Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, I'd come in and run that store. So we ran that store and we were proving the concept while I kept my full-time job. Why is that important? Well, the obvious, right? In case that dream job or that dream idea or that great location that we had and that great idea that we had didn't work out, my full-time job allowed us to put bread on the table, pay the rent, have insurance, and it kind of gave us a cushion or a buffer against the extreme stress that comes with opening your own business. When you roll the dice and everything's depending on that business being awesome, you are taking a chance there that you hope works out. And for many small businesses, it doesn't because of two things. There's profitability and then there's cash flow. And cash flow is so important when you're running your business, especially in the initial stages. You need cash generating from that business to pay the bills. Not only of the store, but pay the bills at home. And so you put those two together, and if you haven't done your homework right and your concept doesn't just fly off the shelf, you're setting yourself up for failure. So what we did was we ran that store for a year while I kept my full-time job. And then we got to the point where we figured like, okay, we're actually losing money by me working for someone else because I could be at the store and I could be putting all my efforts into it. Sometimes we're so afraid to make the change that we procrastinate it. In reality, we were ready to make the change. We'd already proven it. We were making enough money from the store. We weren't making a ton, but we were making enough that we then budgeted and saw that we could pay our bills at home and we could pay our bills at the store, and we'd be breaking even or coming out a little bit ahead. So within a year, I quit my job and then I went full-time into the store. See, I mitigated my risk. I protected myself in case the store or my business idea didn't work out. In case I'd made mistakes, I calculated something wrong, I misread trends, so many things that could actually pile up against me because everything is stacked against you when you go into business, that I mitigated it or I reduced that risk because I kept my job. While I studied and looked at trends. That's one of the things that you must realize and do in order to protect yourself. So, the flip side to that is a fellow that I've been mentoring recently, and he got into a food business, a food truck business. And he'd never been in food business as a manager or operator before. He had been in limited positions in the food business, just working like on the salad bar or a sous chef or something. I mean, he wasn't really in the management of it, but he felt this food concept that he had was going to be great. And he just knew it. He knew it. He felt it in his bones. He had all those warm, fuzzy feelings, and it was going to be just awesome. Red flag right there. You never expect it to be what you think it's going to be. So he got, he took out a loan, he got his food truck going, and within 2 months he had cash flow problems. He started at the wrong time of the year. He was new into being in business, so he stumbled and made mistakes. He made purchasing mistakes. He still was going through his learning curve. You want to go through your learning curve in someone else's business. You want to do it on their dime. You want to make all the mistakes working for someone else as you learn everything you need to do to perfect your business, to create the ad opportunity for you when you're ready to jump from your job into your dream job, right? Those are stepping stone jobs. But he didn't do that. I mean, he had this entrepreneurial fire burning within him, but he didn't have the patience to actually think it through and work it out ahead of time and understand that don't rush into something that eventually may just fall apart, and then it creates a problem for you going forward. And so within two months, he had realized a cash flow problem. And so my advice to him was, well, number one, you're in the worst, you're heading into winter. It's the worst time of the year to be in a food truck. You need to go out and get a side job. You need to get a job to help pay the home bills while you continue to build your business from your food truck. And he's got a great idea. He's got things going for him, and he's showing that, maybe month after month or week after week that his sales are increasing, or he's able to do more marketing. He's on an upward trend, albeit slow, which is, understandable, but he jumped into it too quick. If he didn't have, a backer or an investor who has lots of patience and money, he'd be in trouble. Because if he'd gone to a bank, banks don't understand, and banks don't defer payments. They require their money up front first of every month, just like your rent and everything else. So what's the end of his story? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he can continue to understand how he needs to develop that business, but he wasn't totally prepared in the beginning. He saw too much blue sky. He saw too much wonderful things, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. What he didn't see was enough reality. Now, what would have helped him temper that would have been a mentor. Would have been someone that he had employed or had enlisted their help who had been there. You see, successful people look for people who have been successful in a business, and then you copy them and you learn as much as you can from them. And that helps you through those rough patches. Matter of fact, if you can avoid making mistakes in the first place, then how further ahead will you be? And that's what I hope to give in my coaching and my mentoring business is actually to help people avoid those mistakes in the first place. To actually learn from people who've had experience, and then look how far ahead you are when you don't have to go through what we've already gone through. Now, if you like what we're talking about, some of the information that I've been sharing, click on the link below, subscribe to my channel, check out my webpage, my joeberardi.com. That's www.joeberardi.com. And check out my books. I've written books, 3 books that talk about this in a business sense of how to avoid these mistakes and how to use them to your advantage. Now, I love business. I love talking about business. I hope you're gaining some information from this. And until next time, remember, success is never an accident.